Zach Haire joins us now with Sports Treasures. Excited to start working with him very soon. And we had Zach on last week, and it was obvious he knew the diamond balls and he knew the soft balls as well. So we wanted to hit him up again this week, regardless of what happened over the weekend. But Zach, as it turns out, things worked out pretty well. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. How about you guys?
We're doing well. Tell us what's going on at Sports Treasures before we look at the Vols and softballs, the diamond balls, all the Vols, and what they might be able to do headed into June.
Yep. So the big one this week is Series 2 baseball comes out on, should be here Wednesday. So you'll have some of your bigger rookies in there. Anthony Vitello will be the big one for the Yankees. That's what we got going on this week. We had our anniversary sale last week. Got some leftovers still with as I was joking around here in our social media, it's we've got 3 racks of clothes up front of damaged, dirty, and slightly inappropriate clothing. And by slightly inappropriate, it's 2 racks full of Washington throwback Commanders.
Nice. Well, I've got some hooker shirts if you want to go with inappropriate that I can hook you up with. Let's get rolling with the Diamond Vols. I mean, there's every reason for them to go to Clemson, not have the excitement of last year. Clemson was on an incredible run. There's every reason for them to go to Clemson, and the season is over. And you say to yourself, well, it wasn't 2022, but kudos to them. They made a run, but they didn't do that. They had the right mindset going in. I know you've worked around the team before. What signs did you see that they had the right mindset early on?
I think really after the Vanderbilt game, when they had hit the walk-off home run there, I think that's what turned it. And what Vanderbilt was doing at that point in time, I think that showed them, hey, what the media is saying, what our fans were saying leading into the season, we can do that. We have that capability. I mean, they're statistically looking, our bullpen is best in the country. I mean, you've got what should be 3 top half of the first round draft picks in this year, next year's draft with, Burns at the time, who's now moved to the bullpen, but with Beam next year and Dolander this year, and Andrew Lindsay just coming out of nowhere to really do what he's done, especially to be a Friday night starter in the SEC. It takes a nice little different person mentally to be a Friday night starter in the SEC. But I think that was when that hit, that proved that I think the players saw they could do it, and that they had gotten to the point before that home run of, hey, let's just go out there and have fun. And I think that was just 2 worlds colliding. It made a perfect storm.
So Zach, where does Zane Denton's performance over the weekend rank in most clutch performances ever by a Tennessee athlete? I mean, I think Peerless Price, the 98 national title game.
Yeah.
Is that on that level?
It's I don't know if it's quite to that one. I would put it maybe a close to where Gilbert's grand slam was against I'm drawing a blank, Wagner, I believe it was 2 years, when we hit it to go on to win that first game of the regional a couple years ago. But definitely that was big, him especially, being a transfer, and he's been a clutch player who I was watching the game on TV, talked about how he hit a walk-off grand slam, I believe it was, in Little League World Series as a kid. So he's always had that, what seems to be the clutch factor. I would definitely think baseball-wise, clutch it's going to be in your top 5 or 6. I was a little young when Helton played here. I'm sure he had a few as well as Condridge. Maybe Dave knows some of those he can.
Thank you. I was ready. Yes, I was at school during the Todd Helton years, but not the Condridge years.
And so, but overall, Tennessee, I think you'd be flirting with top 10. You've had some good football and basketball ones to go around. But that was definitely I was out mowing, listening to the game, came in to watch the 9th inning, and I had to apologize for my wife and vacuum up the grass that had fallen off of me after that home run afterwards.
Yeah, and John Wilkerson, always a great guy to listen to, another fantastic call over the weekend. So this team had so much pub around it last year. Some good, some bad. Zach, how would you compare going into the second week of the playoffs with this kind of flying under the radar? May not be the right term, as opposed to rounding second and giving the one finger salute. I mean, how would you weigh both of those as far as your confidence level going into these
Yeah.
games?
So obviously, we're not sure if we're playing Penn or Southern Miss yet. If it's Penn, all things point to us being home. If it's Southern Miss, still up in the air. I would hope we would host either way, but I know Southern Miss has hosted in the past, so they do have the facilities large enough to host. Kind of a lot of things that it can, reminds me of, and we see a lot of times in sports is, the 98 national championship team in football. The 97 team was loaded, came up short. Last year's team was loaded. Obviously this baseball team had a lot more pressure coming in than the 98 Vols football team did. But I think you can see a lot of comparisons as the pieces are there, but they're more of a team. You don't have the personalities of Gilbert, and you don't have the personalities that Beck had, and those guys. You've got. I was at the first pitch banquet this year, and Burns was the player at my table, and he is extremely quiet, very laid back type of guy. And you see what he's on the mound, and you see that emotion. Dolender's kind of similar. He's a little bit quieter of a guy, but then you see him, see that emotion as well on the mound. And there's a lot of comparisons. I feel like this is more of a team that doesn't have the superstars. There's, last year, if you needed a big hit, you were waiting on Gilbert, Drew to come up to bat and make that big hit. This year, pretty much 1 through 9, they're all, I feel like, pretty close to that same level, can make a hit when you need it. Inslee on Saturday night was the one that got the hit to drive in Maui. Well, he was, I believe, 0 for 4, 0 for 5 before that hit, and he was, 1 for 17 his last few at bats before that to step up and make that hit to get in. And so I think that flying under the radars helped them. After they fell early in the SEC season, they've picked back up. No one was really talking about them. Tennessee was the first team to clinch a spot in the Super Regionals. Mm-hmm. So I think I like where they're going, and I like what kind of matchup they're going to have, especially they can be at home for the Supers this coming weekend.
I know Caleb wants to jump into softball. I remind people that Sports Treasures right there on Broadway is your home for Tennessee memorabilia and more. They just have a fantastic store, whether it's cards or memorabilia, collectibles. You need to get to Sports Treasures on Broadway. Portions of the program also brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Integrity matters. Go to cityheatandair.com. Caleb, turn me to some softballs.
Before I get to softball, I just have to say one little thing, which is just to go back with a guy like Zane on the team. You're saying they're headed in one direction. Anybody?
Oh my gosh, is that like a pop music joke?
It's a boy. There was a boy band named One Direction with Harry Styles and a guy named Zane. So,
and now they all gone in their own direction.
They have. Right. They have. But the baseball
new name of the band is Separate Directions.
Yep.
The baseball team is still headed in one direction, though. So,
go ahead, Kev.
So, Zach, on the other side, does the softball team have any chance of beating Oklahoma or winning the College World Series with Oklahoma in there? Or is this like North Carolina women's soccer back in the day?
It's going to be tough when you got to beat them twice. There was an article here I believe it was the paper, Fridays when they played Oklahoma, I believe. And they talked about, I read through it, and Karen Booker talked about how she had rested her 2 pitchers to basically save them for their 2 games coming up today, or game today and then possible game tomorrow against Florida State. Oklahoma is so good across the board. I don't know. I mean, you might get them once, but to have to beat them twice, it's kind of the old adage, if you beat them in game 1, they're going to be ticked off in game 2. Of course, anything can happen in game 3, but then if they beat you in game 1, can you put it together for 2 back-to-back games? But I think it's going to be tough. I think Florida State will be they're a good matchup with Florida State, hopefully to at least get to the championship series, as they said multiple times on the TV set or this weekend with Charlotte. If Tennessee gets to the championship series, they'll have their chip in their chair, and that's all you can ask for.
Hey, Zach, I know you're at Sports Treasures right now, so we want to let you go here in a little bit, but there's a fine line between knocking on the door, like just every year, year in and year out, and then not winning a championship, and then it almost works against you. Where are the weeklies right now in your mind? Because they're knocking on the door. Reminds me of Florida State in the 90s, to date myself. And they're knocking on the door, knocking on the door. Tennessee was one of those teams in the 90s. But at what point do you wonder, I'm not sure that they're going to actually be able to get it done for whatever reason?
I don't know if it's so much them, but the teams that are around them. I mean, if you look at what they have this year, pitching is phenomenal. They've got great hitting. They've got all the parts you're looking for. I think that, kind of like we said with UNC in the 90s with soccer, you're just facing a juggernaut, unfortunately, that you can't – I don't know what you can do to topple it, but I don't know, I think they can get it done here. We talked about, other week. I think they have the parts here, but I would say they're knocking, but until Oklahoma decides to give someone else a chance, I think that knocking on the door may be the ceiling.
All right. Great stuff. Go ahead, Caleb.
I would just say, I would also point out that to think about women's sports, a lot of people don't know this because it's crazy to think about, but in the 70s and the 80s, Pat Summitt was knocking on the door a lot and could not get over the hump and win a national title.
Yep.
And then she won 8.
Yep.
Great point. All right. So what do we got going on, Zach, at Sports Treasures? People need to get down there now.
Yep. Yeah. Like I said, getting ready for should be Wednesday, should be here, Series 2 baseball. That's their big flagship, one of the big flagship products for the year. We'll have that in stock. A few other products come out this week, geared up, getting towards the heart of baseball season, and then football season will be here before we know it.
Yeah, well, trust me.
We do have a bunch of UT signed mini helmets behind me that we got in this past weekend from somebody. So, a lot of 98 championship guys.
Yeah, Zach had me in, and he just wanted me to sign a bunch of helmets. So
yeah.
It actually devalued them tremendously.
Yep. So now our Hendon Hooker shirts are dual purpose now.
That's right. Dual hookers, whatever that means.
Yeah.
All right, Zach. Have a blessed day, man. We appreciate you. Look forward to working with you.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys. Talk to y'all later.
Zach Haire, Sports Treasures. Portions of the program brought to you by Vassy Lawn and Garden. Man alive, it's worth the drive. Industrial commercial mowers, whether you're in Nashville, Knoxville, or Chattanooga, get to Cleveland, Tennessee for Vassy Lawn and Garden. Toro, count on it. So I'm going to give you one more chance to vote. Who goes further and or wins a championship, men or women, on the diamond?
I'm going men because of what Zach talked about. Oklahoma is, they're like the Oklahoma football team of the 50s, that had that 47 straight game win streak with Bud Wilkinson. That's what Oklahoma softball is right now.
Or the Nebraska of the 90s that Tennessee ran into a couple of times.
That's true. Tennessee was better than that Nebraska team.
Yeah, shorter span. But
right.
Again, they just Tennessee did what they did, and they were probably going to beat you at it.
Yeah. I just maintain that if Peyton Manning's not hurt and Tennessee has a defensive coordinator that knew anything about the triple option, Tennessee could have won that game.
What year?
98 Orange Bowl. Yeah.
97, 98.
97, 98. Yeah.
Well, Peyton shouldn't have played. He was also on David Letterman showing off his big swollen knee like 4 days before the game, which was not the greatest, smartest move in the world. I mean, his pants wouldn't wrap around his knee. Do you remember that?
I actually do, funny enough. And I actually remember there were questions about his NFL future because of that knee for a minute.
Yeah, it was a burst of sack.